So, good evening. Welcome to my first Ask Kyisha live. And I would like to start by saying I'm excited that I was able to receive like 8 questions were sent to me. I may not be able to answer all 8, but I am going to do it in a fair way where I have put all the questions in here and I'm going to shake the cup, and then whatever question I pick, I'm going to answer and respond to. So, all the questions are questions around mental health issues or concerns, specifically around stress or anything related to stress and stress management. Um, so this is, let's see, I'm going to start. It's only 7:01, but I don't want to waste time because I'm only going to do these live for about 30 minutes. So, and anybody comes on, you can come ask me questions in the chat on the side. So let's see what I get. The first question I'm going to answer is okay. Okay. So this question is, how can I stay level headed during a triggering moment? Kind of like strategies. This is specifically around stress, the person said. So, how can you stay level headed and calm when you're being triggered? Well, I am going to do um, another live near the end of the month, but around best ways to reduce stress. But this particular, so you have to first know yourself and know, one, what triggers you, and two, what is your personality type. Like, what do you need in a moment when you're triggered? Because some people need to resolve the issue um, that is causing them stress or being upset. Some people need to remove themselves from the issue completely, and that's okay too. Um, you can remove yourself from the triggering activity, event, or stress, and then re-engage or don't re-engage until you process it yourself separately. Um, you could remove yourself temporary, like if you're at a family function and you're being triggered, you can go to the bathroom, wash your face, wet your face, and then come back. That usually can help kind of snap you out of it. But truthfully, you have to know yourself first to know, one, is what triggers you and what in the moment is triggering you, and then two, what works for you specifically, personally. Um, and it is really about personality. So, like if you're an introvert versus um, compared to an extrovert, like introverts like to be to themselves. They don't really want to handle situations right away. They like to process and think things through. Extroverts like to resolve things right away. They're more social and get their energy off people. So that makes a difference too when you're handling stress and conflict. Um, but good question. All right. Now, let's see. By the way, my cup says just a girl who loves makeup. So I don't have any on tonight, just some lip stuff, but okay. Next question. How do I tell my partner when I'm struggling with stress? Okay. So the way you can tell, okay, so first off, you can't explain to anybody else what your stress struggles are unless you understand them in a deeper way. So number one, you have to understand what it is. Number two, you need to think about how you explain it without giving too much information, because then it can make your partner or your loved one or your friend worry about you, and then they can add more stress to you. So you have to be careful. So decide what you're going to share with them about the stress you're struggling with. But the most important thing you're going to share with them is the second part, is that what they can do to help you when you're going through the stress. Um, they need to know specific activities or things they can do to be helpful to you. So, for instance, um, if you're stressed and um, and then your partner comes and talks to you and talks to you and talks to you, um, and it can cause you more stress, then that's not a strategy to use. You would actually tell them, when I'm really stressed out, I need space. And so that way, when you are stressed, they'll give you the space, and then you can self-regulate, de-escalate your stress, and get back to a good space, and then you can re-engage with your partner. So you have to first know, again, know what you want. I mean, know what stress it is, how you what you're going to share and how you're going to share it to your partner, and then what can they do for you to reduce your stress and be helpful. Sometimes one major tip is, have you could tell your partner to distract you with something else, a healthy distraction, like play video games or let's watch a movie, change the subject. It's not always helpful to talk about your feelings and emotions when you're feeling those things. Sometimes you have to let it subside and go away, and then you can process and address them. Because in the moment, if you're so stressed out and you're continuously talking about the stress, you're kind of um, sitting in it, and it can stew and build and build and build, and you can have a panic attack, anxiety attack. So be very careful about that. Okay, let's see. This is the third question, and I think tonight is it's going to be a short live if I get through these questions so quickly. I mean, some of these questions I know is going to take me longer, but okay, this is a good one. Is procrastinating a mental health issue or a product of another mental health issue? And then there's a part B of the question is, what are quick tips to avoid or resist procrastination? So, the first part, is procrastination a mental health issue? Well, first off, what is procrastination? I think that's the most important thing to understand it, because I think a lot of people don't really understand it. They think people are just being lazy or just avoiding responsibility, which both of those are true, but that's not the only part of it. So it's basically a bad habit. That's what it really is, a bad habit, or the way we respond to our issues. So it's not a mental health issue, it's a result of a mental health issue. So either you're feeling anxiety or depression and then you procrastinate, as it's kind of like the response to your symptoms. Like it's a coping response. Procrastination is not a healthy one, but it is a coping response, and it's a bad habit because it starts off as a way for you to respond to feelings of anxiety or depression. And then from there, it turns into a habit and then becomes automatic and you continue to procrastinate. Basically, it's a way for you to avoid important tasks, um, urgent tasks, even if you know you're going to have a negative consequence, like avoiding doing a report for your job or avoiding doing an assignment for school, knowing you're going to be in trouble if you don't get it done, you still will procrastinate. So, what are the reasons? There are many reasons why people procrastinate. They're the top seven, and I'm going to give you one strategy for each reason. So, the first reason is perfectionism. People that want to be perfect and get everything like exactly how it's supposed to be, perfectionists definitely procrastinate because they will do an assignment or a report or a task over and over and over and over until they feel it's perfect. Um, So, and that type of thinking is an extreme thinking process. Like, it's all or nothing. Like, either it's going to be perfect or I'm not going to submit or complete the task. Um, so, you have to change that thought process. This is the strategy. Change that thought process from all or nothing to all or something. That something is better than nothing. So, at least you submit something or you accomplish something or finish something. A second um, reason is avoidance. So people procrastinate in order to avoid. We know that already. Now, the biggest strategy for that is to recognize your patterns, know when avoidance kicks in that leads to procrastination, so you can plan and prepare and intervene and kind of cut it off and disrupt it. Number three is low self esteem, believe it or not. See why it's tied to depression as a response to it? Because low self esteem will have you procrastinate because you think that you're not capable of doing something. So, in that particular sense, the best strategy is obviously to build your confidence so you believe in yourself. A big feeder into that is imposter syndrome, which I'm not going to go into right now, but it is a form of self doubt and low self esteem. The fourth one is um, waiting until last minute, which is a problem. It's especially a problem for people who wait to the last minute and then get an A on a paper, or wait to the last minute and do an excellent report where your boss loves it, because you're gonna be like, "What's the point of doing it early? I do a great job anyway." So then you get in a bad habit. But the strategy to use is called the Pomodoro Technique, which means it's like you got to trick your brain. This technique helps you trick your brain. Instead of you working towards the big goal or the big result you want to achieve, you work towards smaller increments of it, smaller goals or small amounts of time. If you're going to dedicate 2 hours of writing, that's your big goal. You Pomodoro technique is like, oh, okay, I'm gonna spend 15 minutes writing and then I'm gonna take a quick break, and then 15 minutes writing, and then I'm gonna take a break. So it's kind of you trick your brain. That way you don't wait into the last minute. You actually have done pieces of what you need to do. So by the time the last minute comes, you just pull it all together. The fifth one is trouble focusing. A lot of us get distracted. So the biggest strategy, obviously, is to manage your distractions, limit your distractions if you're doing schoolwork or work. So make sure you're in a quiet place, in a setting that is very conducive for you to work, that is very like calming and can help you stay focused. Put your phone on do not disturb, and then just basically have backup plans. And you definitely have to take breaks, because sometimes if you work too long on anything, you start losing focus because you're not interested anymore or you're just tired. So sometimes taking breaks is also good to manage your distractions. Number six is decision fatigue, believe it or not. And that's when you are exhausted from constantly having to make decisions, especially if you're the person in the home and in the family to make all the decisions and pay all the bills and what's going to be for dinner, what's going to be for breakfast, who's going to give this person a ride, resolving all the conflict and problems. So you can get decision fatigue. The strategy to manage that is simplify decisions and limit the amount of decisions you have to make on a daily basis. So some decisions you shouldn't make, and sometimes you can, like, so for dinner, if you're tired, make sure somebody else handles dinner. You don't have to do it every night. Maybe you ask someone else to handle it for you, or um, put off a decision to another day. Now, don't procrastinate. I'm saying intentionally put off a decision to another day. So be careful with that. Seven is, and it's the last one I'm going to talk about, is resisting challenges. So sometimes we procrastinate because we like living in a certain comfort zone. And if anything, you know, not procrastinating is too complicated and is risky and is scary. So, fear factor kicks in, and you don't want to challenge yourself. You just want to stay in your comfort. So, The best way and strategy to kind of battle that is plan and execute. So make sure daily you plan what you're going to do and then execute it. You have to follow through. Sometimes what helps to make ensure you execute is reward yourself when you do accomplish what you need to accomplish. All right. So that was the third question. Let's see. Let's see what other question I have. All right. Here we go. So this is a question on how to manage cultural stress. And this is not cultural stress like it could be environmental stress, or it could be stress due to your race, ethnicity, gender, economic class. So um, how to manage that was the question. So this the this is based stress based on inequalities, injustices, lack of resources, poverty, a major change in your environment, or like um, that your lifestyle is different from what society deems as normal. So it can be any of those things. And so how to manage it is there's five main ways. One is obviously to have a social support system within your own community or your own group or your own family or your own culture. So basically, creating a social support system. So if your stress, I'll give you an example. If your stress is related to being LGBTQ, then you should have a social support system that is of the LGBTQ community. That way, it's a positive support system, and they can understand also and relate to what you may be dealing with as far as stressors. Um, and then number two, healthy coping strategy is limit your exposure to that environment that's causing you stress. Um, it's as simple as that. I mean, if it's work, that's something that you'll have to use some of the other strategies, but and then eventually you may have to figure out if you want to look for another job, truthfully, because if you're working in an environment that is causing you cultural stress, which means that your job may be you know, racist or biased against you, or there might be inequalities in pay, like you may be underpaid or undervalued. And as an individual, there's daily stressors already in life that you really don't want to deal with cultural stress. That's a whole nother ballgame. Number three strategy, use if if this is helpful for you and you do believe in religion or spirituality, you can practice um, any kind of religious spiritual traditions to help you kind of cope with the stress you're dealing with. Number four, use healthy distractions. Music is always great. Um, and anything that makes you laugh, fun, comedy, movies, videos is a healthy distraction. Just be careful to not then turn it into a bad habit, like, and become procrastination. And the last fifth coping strategy for cultural stress is have a great self care, resting, relaxation regimen where you know how to put yourself in a good mindset so you can go, um, if you're experiencing some type of injustice at your job or inequality um, in your lifetime, or bias that they're mistreating you, you having your own self-care regimen, and relaxation regimen, you can really manage yourself in a way that um, you can kind of recuperate and not let it like soak in so much that it changes who you are, because sometimes these type of stressors can really change your personality. You end up feeling like you have to fight to defend yourself, and you can become angry or resentful or upset. And a part of that really has to do with, you just have to find your voice and Make sure that you do stand up for yourself in a way where it doesn't cause more problems and cause more stress, but it is possible. So hopefully that answered the question. But that was a really good question. Okay, another question. Let's see. And if you have questions right now, you could easily just type it in the chat. All right. So this question is how to teach my children stress management. Um, the simplest the simplest thing I'm gonna say, well, first off, it depends on how old your children are. Um, so if you're talking about babies, like babies to 5 years old, um, that's the best time because you can create good habits. So you can create like certain traditions and regular routines that you can do with your kids as a family or even at nighttime, where you can help teach them kind of how to reduce their own stress. Like um, I've suggested in the past to people to do yoga with your children, like to sit and actually practice yoga, or practice praying together, or practice breathing exercises together. And you can actually teach your kids how to do breathing exercises and talk to them about emotions and what stress is. And so, like the movie Inside Out is a great movie. Pixar did that movie, and there's a new one that's Turning Red. It's called. Um, it talks about emotions and how you can really self-regulate. Turning Red is really good for that too, for stress management, because she was getting really upset and she would get angry. She would be stressed out, and the stress would cause her to become angry. And she had to learn to kind of calm her anger down and her stress. So basically, the best way to teach your children stress management is by you doing stress management yourself and then making it a family habit to do together. That is the best way. There's other strategies too, but that, I mean, in my 20 years of doing this work, that's really the best way to teach kids is by you doing, because they learn from watching you. So if you make it an exercise you do together, it's something to carry with themselves. Like for me, my mother was really big on exercising when I was little, so um, exercising, working out, eating right, has been a part of my life since I can remember, like 2, probably 3 years old. So I thank my mom for that. Um, all right, here we go. Next question. And we got like 8 minutes left. Let's see. All right, this is a great question. How can I create boundaries and say no um, when to say no when you're stressing out? Like how to create boundaries, basically. So this is a good one. Boundary creation is very difficult when it comes to family, but not impossible. Anything's possible. So creating boundaries is basically kind of like an imaginary line that separates you from the other people, or from the other person. Basically, it's a way that you are creating physical space with your feelings, needs, responsibilities, and it also tells people how they can treat you and what's acceptable and what's not, what you're gonna be okay with and what you're not okay with. So, um, what does boundaries, a healthy set of boundaries look like? Well, healthy boundaries means that you delete negative people and negative things. You have a positive support system. You learn how to say no when you really want to say no. You have self confidence, and um, you are able to communicate certain things with your communication with the person or persons is healthy in a way where you can actually communicate your feelings, and it not turn into conflict or turn into them not following your boundaries. How do you create boundaries? I'm going to tell you 7 steps, just 7. 1, say no. 2, review your priorities. 3, look at how you are treating others. because then that can send a signal whether or not they're going to maintain boundaries or not. Because if you say that you want this, and this and that, and then you do the opposite, then you're going to send the wrong message to them, and then they're not going to maintain the boundaries. So you got to be careful. Number four, start to trust your gut instinct again. Like your gut never fails you. Usually, what fails you is not listening to your gut, and then you go through with something, or don't have a conversation, or don't do something, and then you're like, "Dang, I should have listened to my gut." Number five, build your a positive support system. I can't say that enough. You need people in your life that are going to be encouraging and supportive, and that can really be helpful even if they're not going to help you with your emotions or anxiety or stress or depression, that they still can be there for you to distract you in a healthy way from those things. So everyone needs a positive support system. I have one, thank goodness. Number six, build self-care foundation. Again, here we go back to that. That was important for cultural stress, is important for boundary setting. Like that is important, because if not, then you're doing constantly for everybody else and you're not taking care of yourself. So that's why this is one of the ways that you create boundaries. Seven, ask for support when you need it. You are not expected to do everything by yourself. So be careful with that. All right, we have 4 minutes. Let's see. And there's two more questions. We might be able to get through these questions. Let's see. About to see right now. Alrighty. How can I be more present, not freeze up while stressed? So, usually when stress and anxiety kicks in, there's three automatic responses. You either fight the stress, you try to push through it, or you flee, like you run away from it, or you freeze, like you get stuck. And when you get stuck, that's what this person is talking about. When you get stuck, you just sit in the stress and can't get out of it. It's kind of like a whirlwind. So the question was, how can you be more present and not um okay, this is kind of similar to social anxiety that I shared, but a little different, because this is about you and self-regulation and kind of like de-escalation, self de-escalation. So how can you manage? So the other two options is to fight or flee. So if you're freezing, I think what you have to do is move into one of the other categories. That's the easiest strategy. So that means that whatever is causing you stress, you have to fight back against it or leave it alone. That's the biggest strategy I would tell you to use, is that. Why? Because um, if you if it's so stressful and you just sit there frozen, you get nothing accomplished. And then you can start to get a headache, a migraine, because the stress, we can't get stress headaches, stress migraines, people. And then you get nothing accomplished, and then you end up the whole day sitting in the stress. So you have to do something about it. Another thing you can do is tap into some of your self-care strategies. So like exercise, go for a walk. um you gotta That's what it talks about. That's what I'm saying, that instead of freezing, you can fight or flee. Fleeing means leaving the stress. So that means taking a walk. Go outside, take a walk. That's fleeing, that's leaving. um Listening to music, that's also leaving, emotionally, mentally leaving the space. So I think that's what I would suggest for not staying frozen. And then the last question, and then we made it the 30 minutes, guys. How do I manage social anxiety? Stress. Okay, this is the last one. This is pretty good. Well, I can give you 5 tips on how to manage social anxiety. First off, social anxiety is mainly, um, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in big groups. It can happen even when you go to work. It's any time you're in a social environment, so you're not at home. So um, you're not at home. It could be small group. It could be you and one other person. It could be an office you share. It can be a big concert. So five there's five strategies to manage social anxiety. One, arrive on time, which means arrive early wherever you're going, whether it's work, a meeting, school, church, to meet a friend at a restaurant. Arrive early, not on time. Because if you're on time, that means you're early. Um, if if you're on time, that means you're late. Like if you get there at 7, then you're late already. But if you get there at 6:45, then you're on time. That's the same. Anyway, but arrive early. 2, prepare some small talk, like current events, things going on. There's plenty of things going on right now that you could talk about. So that's like small talk, the weather. I mean, it's very small talk. Number 3, avoid alcohol. Believe it or not, alcohol can cause more anxiety and also can cause more depression. Exercise regularly and eat healthy foods. Those three are really important. And I consider those three one strategy, truthfully. Um, Number 4, use social skills. So you have to learn, there's three social skills I would say. One is assertiveness. So where you're able to have your own voice and stand up for yourself, or at least have an opinion, or um, engage in a conversation or not. Being assertive is you being able to follow your own lead. Um, and you have to push back sometimes when people say things that or do things that you don't like. 2, nonverbal, use nonverbal communication. Obviously, it's body language and stuff. And so, um, one way is to build your confidence. So then you won't, if you're not confident and you're in social um, meeting or event or some activity, you if you're anxious and you don't use nonverbal communication correctly, you can be like sitting like this all stressed out and clenched up, but instead build confidence where you can sit and you could listen to people and just engage, or not, it's up to you. And then a third social skill is verbal communication. And one major tip within that is just whenever you're coming into a conversation or you're sitting there, let everybody else talk first. You listen first and then you join the conversation. That way it'll be more comfortable and easy. Usually people with social anxiety cannot initiate a conversation unless they're with people that they regularly with and know closely. So the fifth and last strategy is emotional coping. So, emotional coping is there's three different things you could do for emotional coping while you're in a social environment. One is deep breathing. I mean, you're not going to do deep breathing in front of a group of people, so you have to do like breathe in and out, maybe count to 4 in your head. You have to do it quietly when nobody's paying attention. Or you go to the bathroom and do deep breathing to take a moment. 2, reduce your negative thoughts. Challenge your negative thoughts, transform them into more positive thought or less negative thought. Like one of the major things with social anxiety is that you feel like people are going to criticize you or make fun of you, or judge you. And so reducing that's all negative thoughts. Instead, say, you know what, these people don't know me. They're probably not saying anything about me. So challenge your thoughts with like positive self talk. And then the third is face your fears. So if one of your fears that's causing you social anxiety is like saying hi first to someone or meeting new people, you could just say hi and then sit back and then you could like introduce yourself and then let them take the conversation and then you jump in. But sometimes facing your fears is not easy. You might need to, get professional help first if it's really bad. And I've had people with really bad social anxiety. But anyway, so I have no more questions for tonight. So thank you for joining my Ask Kyisha live, and till next time.